Most people quit walking right before their body begins burning the deepest, most stubborn fat. That timing mistake is invisible, yet it explains why belly fat refuses to disappear for so many. They finish their walk feeling productive, slightly breathless, and confident they just helped their metabolism. But inside the body, the real metabolic shift was only seconds away from actually beginning. The fat-burning phase that targets visceral fat around the organs starts right after most people stop. That one small mistake explains a frustrating experience that millions of walkers share every single day. Someone walks every day for months and still struggles with stubborn, persistent abdominal fat going nowhere. Another person walks the same pace but slightly longer and slowly begins noticing their waistline shrink. From the outside, both of those walking routines look almost completely identical to each other. But inside their bodies, those two people are operating in two entirely different metabolic states. To understand why this happens, we need to look at how the body actually chooses its fuel. The body does not begin exercise by burning fat. It always starts with the fastest fuel available. That fuel is glucose, specifically glucose stored in the form of glycogen inside your muscles and liver. Glycogen is the body's rapid response energy reserve that can be broken down almost instantly. From an evolutionary standpoint, this design makes complete and perfect sense for human survival needs. Early humans needed to run, climb, or escape danger without waiting for slow metabolic processes. Glycogen gives the body immediate energy, which is exactly what any sudden physical movement demands. So when you begin walking, even with fat loss as your goal, glucose is always used first. During the first 10 to 15 minutes of moderate walking, most energy still comes from glucose. Inside muscle cells, enzymes break glycogen into glucose units that produce ATP, your body's energy currency. During this early stage, fat metabolism is active but extremely limited and not yet truly dominant. The body simply does not yet need fat because it already has a faster fuel ready. This is one of the biggest misunderstandings in everyday fitness advice that most people regularly hear. People assume that the moment their heart rate rises, fat burning is already happening at full speed. But physiologically, the body is still operating in what scientists call a glucose-dominant state. The metabolic machinery designed to oxidize fat has simply not yet taken full control of anything. However, something critically important begins to change the longer your walking continues without stopping completely. Your glycogen stores do not vanish instantly. They decline slowly and very gradually over time. As that decline progresses, the body starts preparing for a significant shift in its fuel strategy. The endocrine system begins adjusting hormone levels in response to the shifting internal energy environment. Insulin begins to fall while hormones such as glucagon and epinephrine start to rise significantly. These hormonal changes signal that the body may soon need access to its deeper stored energy reserves. That powerful hormonal signal travels through the bloodstream and eventually reaches fat cells throughout your body. Inside fat tissues, special enzymes responsible for breaking down stored triglycerides begin slowly activating themselves. This process is known as lipolysis, and it is the true beginning of real fat release. Fat cells release fatty acids into the bloodstream during this important process of activation and release. These fatty acids travel through circulation and eventually reach the muscle tissue that urgently needs fuel. Inside mitochondria, the tiny energy factories in your cells, fatty acids undergo a process called beta oxidation. In beta oxidation, long chains of fatty acids are broken into smaller fragments that produce ATP. Compared to glucose metabolism, fat oxidation is slower but far more efficient for sustained physical energy. Fat contains significantly more stored energy per molecule, making it ideal for long, sustained aerobic movement. But here is the crucial point that most people in the fitness world completely and consistently miss. Even when fatty acids enter the bloodstream, they are not immediately the dominant energy source yet. For a period of time, the body runs on both glucose and fat at the same time. The real and significant transition happens later at what physiologists officially call the metabolic crossover point. This is the specific moment when fat oxidation begins supplying more energy than carbohydrate metabolism does. In other words, the body finally stops relying primarily on glucose and starts relying on fat. For many people performing moderate walking, this crossover point occurs somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes. The exact timing depends on your fitness level, metabolic flexibility, and what you ate before walking. But the pattern remains consistent. The longer you walk, the more fat becomes your dominant fuel. This transition becomes especially important and meaningful when it comes specifically to stubborn visceral fat loss. Visceral fat actually behaves very differently from the fat stored just beneath your skin's surface. It is highly responsive to hormonal signals associated with sustained and prolonged aerobic physical activity. When insulin levels fall and lipolysis signals increase, visceral fat becomes far more metabolically accessible. The body becomes more willing to draw energy from the deep fat surrounding the vital organs. This is exactly why walking duration matters far more than most people ever truly realize or consider. Someone walking 10 or 15 minutes may still be entirely operating within the glucose burning phase. Their body is active and calories are burning, but the deeper fat systems have not yet activated. Another person walking 45 minutes at the same comfortable pace spends real meaningful time in fat burning. Over weeks and months, that simple difference in duration compounds into dramatically different and visible results. Longer aerobic sessions repeatedly push the body through the exact same complete metabolic transition cycle. Glycogen use, hormonal shift, lipolysis activation, and mitochondrial fat oxidation all repeat with every single session. As this cycle repeats day after day, the entire body begins to adapt in remarkable ways. Mitochondria become more efficient at processing fat, and muscles get better at transporting fatty acids efficiently. The entire metabolic system becomes more flexible in its ability to switch smoothly between different fuels. Scientists call this metabolic flexibility, and it is a key marker of true long-term metabolic health. But the most important insight here is surprisingly and beautifully simple to understand and apply daily. The first part of a walk prepares your body to burn fat effectively and most efficiently. The second part of the walk is actually where the real fat burning happens in full force. For many people, the difference between those two phases is only 10 or 15 more minutes. Once the metabolic crossover point begins to approach, your body's internal chemistry starts shifting quite significantly. Nothing dramatic happens on the surface. Your pace feels the same. Your breathing stays completely steady. But inside your muscles, an entirely different energy system is gradually and quietly taking full control. One key driver behind this entire metabolic shift is a powerful molecule that scientists call AMPK. AMPK stands for adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase, and it acts as the body's internal metabolic sensor. Its job is to constantly monitor the energy status inside each cell throughout your entire body. When energy demand rises and available ATP begins declining relative to use, AMPK becomes powerfully activated. When AMPK activates, it sends strong signals encouraging the body to produce energy through efficient pathways. One of those pathways is fat oxidation, exactly the process your body needs during sustained walking. Activated AMPK encourages muscle cells to significantly increase the transport of fatty acids into the mitochondria. In other words, AMPK helps open the metabolic door that allows fat to become truly usable fuel. This is one reason sustained walking gradually becomes more efficient at burning fat the longer it continues. At the same time, another remarkable adaptation is quietly taking place inside the mitochondria themselves. Mitochondria are not static structures. They are dynamic, and they actively respond to repeated metabolic demand. When the body frequently enters a state requiring fat oxidation, mitochondria begin adapting to handle it. Over time, this can lead to an increase in mitochondrial density within your very own muscle cells. The muscle literally develops more and more energy-producing structures specifically capable of processing fatty acids. This process is often referred to as mitochondrial adaptation, and its effects on long-term health are profound. The more mitochondria your muscle tissue contains, the more efficiently your body can oxidize stored fat.
This is one reason endurance athletes tend to have extremely efficient and highly powerful fat metabolism. Their muscles are densely packed with mitochondria, trained specifically to process fatty acids as primary fuel. But even in non-athletes, consistent walking can gradually push the body in this exact same direction. Every time a walking session lasts long enough to reach the fat-burning phase, adaptation begins. The body receives a small but meaningful training signal to increase its capacity for fat oxidation. Over weeks and months, these signals accumulate and lead to measurable improvements in overall metabolic efficiency. This is where visceral fat becomes particularly and deeply relevant to everything we have discussed so far. Visceral fat is highly sensitive to hormonal signals associated with sustained energy demand during aerobic exercise. When lipolysis is activated repeatedly through sustained aerobic movement, visceral fat releases fatty acids more readily.
Because visceral fat has a richer blood supply than subcutaneous fat, it enters circulation quite quickly. In simple terms, visceral fat is metabolically active and extremely responsive to prolonged aerobic energy demand. This is why research consistently shows that regular aerobic activity can significantly reduce visceral fat levels. These reductions happen even when total body weight changes only very modestly during the same period. Another deeply important factor that influences this entire process is what scientists call metabolic flexibility. Metabolic flexibility means the body's ability to switch smoothly between burning carbohydrates and burning fat. In metabolically healthy individuals, this fuel switching process happens efficiently and without much internal resistance. When glucose is abundant, the body uses it. When glucose declines, the body shifts towards fat. However, in individuals with insulin resistance, this fuel switching process can become seriously impaired over time. The body remains overly dependent on glucose, even when plenty of accessible fat stores are available. This is one reason visceral fat accumulation and metabolic inflexibility so often appear together in people. Regular walking helps restore this flexibility by placing the body in situations requiring a natural fuel shift. Walking effectively trains the metabolic system to become more adaptable with each and every consistent session. Over time, muscles get better at transporting fatty acids, and hormonal signaling becomes increasingly more balanced. The body becomes increasingly comfortable and genuinely efficient at using fat as its primary energy fuel. Another often overlooked factor in this entire process is the actual intensity level of your walking. If walking intensity is too low, the metabolic demand may not stimulate meaningful or lasting adaptation. If intensity becomes too high, the body shifts back toward carbohydrate metabolism to generate faster energy. This is exactly why moderate aerobic intensity tends to be the most effective zone for sustained fat burning. Exercise physiologists often describe this ideal intensity using one simple and very practical conversational rule. You should be able to talk comfortably while walking, but singing should feel genuinely difficult to do. This range places your body in an aerobic zone where fat oxidation can gradually and continuously increase. Within this zone, the longer the activity lasts, the more fat your body burns as fuel. This leads to one of the most important insights about walking and visceral fat reduction overall. The metabolic benefits of walking are simply not linear. They build slowly and then begin accelerating. The first 15 minutes of walking prepare the metabolic environment inside your body for real fat use. The hormonal shifts begin. Glycogen slowly declines. Lipolysis begins activating across fat tissue throughout your body. But the most significant fat-burning phase often occurs much later within the walking session itself. By the time a person reaches 30 or 40 minutes, fat dominates the body's entire energy supply. A larger percentage of energy used during each additional minute comes directly from your own fat stores. Over time, those extra minutes add up in ways that eventually become clearly visible on the body. What may feel like a simple daily habit can slowly reshape the entire metabolic landscape within you. Visceral fat becomes more responsive. Muscle tissue becomes more efficient. Mitochondria multiply and grow increasingly stronger. The body gradually and measurably transforms into a more effective and truly powerful fat-burning system over time.
By the 30 to 40 minute mark, several biological systems are operating very differently from the start. What began as a glucose-dominant activity has fully transformed into a fat-dominant metabolic environment. At this stage, insulin levels have typically fallen significantly compared to when your walk first began. Insulin is not only a blood sugar hormone, it is also the strongest signal suppressing fat release. When insulin is elevated, fat cells tend to hold tightly onto all of their stored energy reserves. When insulin drops and energy demand remains high, the barriers preventing fat release begin to significantly weaken. This is when lipolysis truly accelerates, and the body begins releasing fatty acids at a much higher rate. Inside fat tissue, triglycerides are broken apart into glycerol and free fatty acids ready for release. These fatty acids enter the bloodstream and travel towards the muscle tissue that needs them for fuel. As walking continues, the rate of fatty acid transport into the mitochondria begins to increase steadily. Specialized transport proteins shuttle fatty acids across mitochondrial membranes, where beta oxidation can finally fully occur. Once inside the mitochondria, fatty acids are progressively broken down to produce the energy called ATP. The implication of this entire biological process is both beautifully and powerfully simple to understand. The longer the body remains in this active fat-burning state, the more fat it can use.
And this is precisely where visceral fat becomes one of the most important parts of the story. Visceral fat has a higher metabolic turnover rate than the fat stored underneath your skin surface. It responds more rapidly to hormonal signals related to energy demand during sustained aerobic activity. When the body enters prolonged movement with low insulin and active lipolysis, visceral fat actively mobilizes. The deeper fat surrounding the organs begins actively participating in the body's energy economy at this stage. This does not mean visceral fat disappears instantly. Fat loss is always a slow and gradual process. But repeated exposure to this metabolic state creates the exact conditions under which visceral fat can decline. Low insulin, active lipolysis, and sustained mitochondrial fat oxidation, all working together, make this steadily possible. This is exactly why the duration of walking sessions often matters far more than simple step count. Many people focus heavily on steps, aiming for popular targets like 10,000 steps per day. While total activity volume is certainly beneficial, the metabolic effects depend strongly on continuous, unbroken duration. A single uninterrupted walk long enough to reach the fat-burning phase creates a very different physiological response. This is completely different from multiple short bursts of movement spread throughout the entire day. Short walks still meaningfully improve circulation, glucose control, and overall general health in important ways. But when the goal is specifically reducing visceral fat, sustained walking creates a far more powerful signal. Another critically important factor in this process is the powerful role of long-term consistency over time.
The body adapts remarkably well to repeated patterns of energy demand placed upon it consistently. When walking sessions consistently last long enough to reach the crossover point, the body reorganizes itself. Muscles increase their ability to oxidize fatty acids. Mitochondria become more numerous and highly efficient. Hormonal signaling becomes increasingly favorable and balanced for fat mobilization with each consistent walking session. Over time, someone who walks regularly will begin reaching the metabolic crossover point progressively much sooner. Their muscles are already primed. Their metabolic flexibility allows them to transition between fuel sources easily. This is one reason long-term walkers often develop remarkably stable energy levels and improved metabolic health. They have trained their body to access and burn fat as fuel quickly and consistently over time. But perhaps the most important insight in this entire conversation is not even biochemical at all. It is psychological, and it is the insight that ties everything else together in a truly meaningful way. The metabolic shift that allows visceral fat to be used as fuel does not feel exciting or special. It usually happens later in the walk when things feel ordinary, repetitive, and slightly boring to you. That is the moment when most people check the time and think that is probably enough today. Yet biologically, that exact moment is when the most meaningful metabolic work is only just beginning. The body has already moved through its preparation phase, glycogen use, hormonal adjustments, lipolysis activation. Now the system is finally operating in the state where fat supplies a large portion of all energy.
Every additional minute spent in that state gently nudges the body toward better and lasting metabolic health. The moment you think you have done enough is often the moment the real work truly begins. That quiet realization changes everything about how you approach a simple daily walk from this day forward. So the exact moment walking starts burning visceral fat is not the first step you ever take. It is the moment your body quietly transitions from relying on quick energy to relying on stored energy. For many people, that moment arrives just after the point when they usually decide to stop walking. The real story of walking and visceral fat is not about your speed or your step count. The critical factor is something far less obvious and far more powerful than either of those things. It is time spent in the right metabolic state, consistently and repeatedly over many weeks and months. The first part of your walk prepares the body. The second part is where real change happens. Those extra minutes feel unremarkable. They feel like nothing special, but biologically, they are absolutely everything. Over weeks and months, those minutes accumulate. Mitochondria grow stronger. Metabolic flexibility quietly and steadily improves. Visceral fat becomes more and more responsive to your body's energy demands with each consistent session. The next time you go for a walk, remember that the goal is not simply to start moving. The goal is to stay moving long enough for your body's biology to meaningfully shift and change. And sometimes the moment that change begins is the exact moment most people decide to stop walking.